Is Yamato a boy? Is Yamato a girl? Not sure, but I guess you're gonna find out in this video. So, without further ado, let's go. Now, there's been a lot of misconception when it comes to Yamato's gender, specifically regarding whether she's male or female, but what most people don't really realize is that Oda's kind of already, hinted at it, whether it's through design or statements from him. So the first thing I'm going to probably point out is Yamato a girl or a boy? Now, on one side, there are those people who believe that there is no right or wrong way of saying her gender, but there's more nuance to that, especially with the hints that One Piece and specifically Oda drops in. But in terms of, representation LGBT stuff in One Piece, it's there. It's definitely there. And nobody can deny it. I mean, we have characters like Ivankov, Bon Clay, and the entire Okama Island, as well as Kiku, a very notable one, and a I forgot Inazuma, of course. There's at least so many characters that present an LGBTQ plus representation and stuff for people who like that, and that's not to say that you know there's anything wrong with it, because I for one don't mind any of these characters. I think they're some of my favorite ones, but I don't think it necessarily applies to Yamato specifically. Now, why? First of all, let's do a bit of a deep dive. Now, the first thing I'm going to bring up is Yamato, whether they're a girl or a boy to me. Now, to me personally, I think it's pretty clear and cut. Yamato's a girl. Uh, there's just no other way of, indicating it, at least to me, design wise, and Oda's own input on it. It's pretty clear and cut that Yamato's a girl. And I think a lot of people just don't really understand or can't seem to grasp why Yamato is a girl. But it's something that he and a lot of other manga authors don't really normally care about. But there's a lot of instances where characters or where authors there's a lot of instances where authors make these kind of characters and don't really you know do a deep dive or really care about what they are. uh, Another namingly character from another series is Neferpito from Hunter x Hunter. That's another vague character that's not really either or, but if you really look at the manga and the evidence, it points to um, the gender and of that character, which I'll probably save for a separate video. But anyway, now why do I believe Yamato is a girl? First and foremost, the character design. Uh, for me, Yamato just clear and cut looks like a girl, especially after she was unmasked and took off those sleeves, I guess, uh, when everything was going on with Luffy. Uh, Appearance wise, she just looks like a girl. I mean, there's no other way to put it. One big indication is obviously her body structure, obviously. But another one that I thought was very apparent was her hairpins and her earrings. Now, normally there are characters in One Piece that wear earrings, uh, but not that I can think of how many characters there are that have hoops, like circle gold earrings on them, traditionally in both. I mean, I've seen characters in One Piece have like earrings in one, namely Zoro. He has like three earrings in one at one point, and then like one or two after the time skip. I don't remember off the top of my head. But another point of that is the hairpins, specifically on Yamato. Those are literally depicted as oiran hairpins, which is traditionally used by women who are oirans. Uh, and you see this kind of thing throughout the other characters in Wano who are depicted as oirans or have that kind of character design. Another aspect of that is Yamato isn't actually seen as a male in the manga, despite what people really think. Um, First off, and I want to note this first and foremost, Yamato, and before I move on to other things, Yamato in general, beside from the design, why do people refer to Yamato as Kaido's son? And that's the main argument that I see people use as when defining that she's a trans male. But I don't think that's a valid argument because in the manga itself, Kaido has never referred to Yamato as a female, always as his son. So mainly because he never wanted a daughter or anything like that. He never cared about that. Actually, I don't even think he really cared about Yamato at all, but only that he wanted Yamato to be Shogun, and Shogun is a title and position normally and almost always for males only. Uh, and another aspect of that is that I wanted to bring is Yamato, the name itself, is of male origin. So Kaido giving Yamato this name is kind of like already hinting and kind of in the face, like, I never considered you as female, you're a son, whatever. And Kaido being the macho man he is, that's all he cares about. He doesn't care whether Yamato's a girl or anything about that. He never wanted that, and that's pretty apparent by the way he treats her and the way he just disregards that side of her. Um, and another aspect that I wanted to talk about is aspect of this that I wanted to explore is that not everybody sees Yamato as a male either, especially when when she's declaring herself to be Oden, obviously as a LARP or like a character role play because she admires him so much. Uh, Kozuki Oden, she's like, I'm Kozuki Oden, and since he was a man, I'll call myself a man too. But what people don't understand is that she admires this person so much that she's willing to roleplay as him and become him because there's absolutely no hope in the entire franchise, or not the entire franchise, but in the arc, there's nobody at that point who can really stand up to Kaido and his men who have taken over and pretty much they've been rotting Wano of its spirit and everything. So Yamato could only do the one thing that she could while incarcerated and become and really emphasize that spirit that Oden left behind, and that she, at least in her point of view, nobody else really showed until later on in the arc where she finds out not everybody that was with Oden died. So that's another aspect as to why Yamato isn't considered, at least to me, a trans character or trans male specifically. Like I said, the male, or specifically, like I said, the character design itself just doesn't show at all that Yamato is a trans male. Now, some people are going to like say, "Oh, the design doesn't really matter," but if you pay attention to all the other trans characters and LGBTQ characters who can turn into females or either or, generally, especially with Inazuma is a male. When he's a male, he looks very male, has those like um, aspects of him. But when Inazuma turns into a female, you can see those more feminine aspects, and it doesn't dress the same at all. Same for Ivankov. Ivankov, it doesn't matter what he dresses himself as because Ivankov can be either or. So generally, I guess Ivankov is more comfortable, or at least in my opinion, Ivankov's more comfortable, or at least they feel their true self when they're female, especially because of the way that Ivankov dresses. Now, Ivankov dresses up as like your, I wouldn't say stereotypical, but your drag queen from all those like type of things. Uh, but it doesn't mean that it's a bad design or anything. It's really nice. I think what really matters though is the character personality and their themes and their sort of goals. That's what pretty much defines a character, at least for me. And another thing is also Bon Clay, another character that can be either or, due to Bon Clay's Devil Fruit ability, is that they dress more in a feminine-ish way. So when they transform, it doesn't really matter. But at the same time, there's that argument for Yamato. If Yamato was indeed seeing herself as a male, she would dress up as more male-like. But you don't really see that, especially with the hairpins. At least to me, it doesn't look like she. I think she considers herself female at least, but at the same time doesn't really mind hanging out with the boys. So I guess you could say and make the argument that she's basically a tomboy. Um, as a lot of characters in a lot of anime and manga are depicted anyway. So another aspect that I wanted to bring was the Vivre cards. A lot of people literally, for some reason, state that the Vivre cards don't have any merit or anything like that. But these things are actually approved, and you know they actually have to be approved by Oda. Otherwise, they're his characters. He has to go and approve each one, and they don't really go against what you see in the manga, at least in terms of gender and sex wise. I guess it does nothing really changes, or at least is wrong about that in terms of the manga, especially if we compare other Vivre cards. For example, Kiku. Kiku is explained in the Vivre card to be male, but woman at heart. So that obviously means that Kiku is a trans female character. Another one is Ivankov, who is actually in the Vivre card stated to be uh, new new human or newcomer, which means either or. Same for Bon Clay. And just like other depictions of the Vivre cards, there isn't really um anything else. I mean, even Ulti there has a female only character in Japanese in the Vivre card, so there already has a very there's already a definitive answer for you if you want to know whether Yamato's a female or a male. And right there in the Vivre cards, it explicitly says that Yamato is a female. And I don't know, I just don't understand why there are people who argue against the Vivre cards. I mean, it's giving you a factual piece of information about the characters and the story. So you'd think that people would be keeping that or at least understanding that that's the fact of the series, that's a fact of a character. Now people usually argue that uh, the characters in the manga don't refer to Yamato as a female. And again, going back to the part where Kaido never referred to Yamato as a female, again, because he never wanted a daughter or anything like that. So he always referred to Yamato as male or his son, not out of, respecting Yamato's wish to be Odin, that he really hated that and beat the crap out of her just for saying that. So obviously that's not a thing. He never really cared or considered about Yamato's gender. It just, and not gender, but her being a female. It just didn't. He disregarded it in general, because he doesn't acknowledge that side of her. Um, and another aspect of that is that the characters don't. Not all the characters, if actually not a lot of characters refer to Yamato as a male. Now, some aspect of that is because number one, uh, in the manga itself, even in the English localization, a lot of Kaido's crew call Yamato as Oni Princess, And same for some Wano samurai who are in prison. They refer to Yamato as Oni Princess. And some Wano folk as well. They've given her that title as Oni Princess. And it's really just a depiction of how people actually see her. And most of the time, when Yamato refers to herself as a male, it's usually associated with being Odin. And the only one time uh, that she doesn't do that is against Green Bull, and I'm pretty sure it's because she wanted to intimidate Green Bull for obvious reasons. Kaido is very scary person, and obviously being Kaido's child would put and instill some fear into any person actually. So I guess obviously that didn't work, and even Green Bull was kind of confused. He's like, "What, Kaido-san? What?" And that goes again. That goes towards every character that Yamato has self-proclaimed herself as Kozuki Oden. They've all been visibly confused, especially after oh, you're a son, you're Odin, and you always see that question mark after that statement. Another aspect that I wanted to bring up is like literally Brooke. Or first off, I wanted to bring up the character moments between Nami and Yamato. Right after the defeat of Kaido, Yamato's like been staying up trying to take care of everybody, and she hasn't bathed in a while. And same for the other characters. So Nami comes up and asks, "Hey, let's take a bath." And at least to me, my interpretation is that Nami never really considered Yamato to actually be serious because she always thought that Yamato was playing around, and so obviously in that aspect, Nami doesn't see Yamato as a male, and people are gonna argue, oh, but Yamato was in the bath scene with the males, and I think that mainly plays off as a gag, especially because you see Brooke, Sanji, and Mononosuke all like reacting in a really, you know, un in a really funny way where they're all doing that nosebleed and they're kind of crushing on Yamato and asking her like why is she doing that and all that. And for those characters they usually respect people to how they are. So Yamato not being a male is kind of solidified there, at least to me. Because it's not just that instance; it's several instances now that I've stated that Yamato is being not really portrayed as a male or seen as a male. Just some aspects of people are just kind of misconstruing those moments. Um, but yeah, every time Yamato has like stated, "Oh, I'm a male," it's usually associated with Kozuki Oden or being Kozuki Oden. Um, Even in the last line that Yamato says, uh, or the last line that you actually see Yamato, and that's when Luffy and everybody's just leaving, and Luffy's like, "Hey, if you ever want to be pirates, just say the word, we'll come pick you up." And then Mononosuke is like, "Hey, I'm gonna surpass my dad one day," and then Kinemon is he's right there to say, "Yeah, I'll be there to witness it." And then Yamato kind of just like goes back on everything and is like, "Oh, me?" Basically indicating that, oh, she still sees herself as Odin. And then Mononosuke, being the guy that he is, and he's always been creeped out by that, um, by Yamato claiming to be Odin. He's like, no, and all that. So it's pretty obvious. At least Mononosuke and a lot of other characters don't consider Yamato to be a male, specifically because Yamato doesn't dress like one, and Yamato doesn't, you know, really feel that way, at least in terms of character interactions. Nobody really considers Yamato as a male. Um, Otherwise, you'd see Luffy, not, you'd see Sanji, um, Brooke, and everybody just not being. They would respect it more than anything. They would respect it. They're not really people to really go against somebody's wishes and everything. But yeah. Anyway. Another aspect that I wanted to bring is Oda's own depictions himself. Now, I mentioned this really briefly earlier, but this is more in tune with the whole Yamato being a female, and Oda himself is the author, so you'd think that people would consider that the word of God basically in the series, because he's the author, he's the creator of these characters, so he, out of everyone in the world, should know what gender the characters are. And there's three instances to me that he considers Yamato a female, and actually no, not three, at least several, not even three. There's a lot more than that that I've even stated in the video. But now I'm going to state something new. I guess would be number one. Oda did a drawing uh, for Yamato as an actual Oidon. And people normally don't really talk about that. I don't know why, but that's something that Eiichiro Oda drew himself. And I'm gonna show you a little picture right here. But uh, yeah, this picture here, it's obviously Yamato as a Oidon, and for those who don't know, Oidon is a Japanese hostess, typically a role done by a female. So Oda, right then and there, already solidifies Yamato as a female character, and he wouldn't really do that if he didn't consider her that way. But if you want more evidence, uh, Oda did another color panel with all the One Piece females, at least the notable ones, in a color spread called One Piece Females. And the title itself is One Piece Females. And you see everybody else in like beach wear and everything. And Yamato herself right there. So that's, if you didn't think, Oda, if you didn't think Yamato was a girl before, I'm pretty sure at this point it's obvious. There's not just one instance, there's not just two instances, and there's not just three instances. There's four, five, six, seven instances at this point where Oda's like, hey, yeah, there Yamato is a girl. And normally this is the thing about manga authors, they don't like to really, you know, tell you all these things. They like to show you it. Even if it's like small hints here and there, it's not always told. But given the VVIC card, given the color spread of the One Piece girls, given the Oidon drawing that Oda himself did, I would consider those three things, the very pinnacle of proof of Yamato's gender. I mean that's pretty definitive. There's no way you can argue against that at that point, and there's no way that you can argue that Oda's wrong, because it's his character, it's his story. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what the character is. And again, it's not just those three specific instances. Even in the manga, the English localization, there's a text box in the manga that says um, Yamato is Kaido's daughter. Now, I don't understand why people say that's like a translation error or anything. That in even in the Japanese uh, manga or Japanese wording, it's still the same thing. It still means the same thing. And in the Viver card, it doesn't confirm at all whether Yamato is a male. It just says Kaido's child in the description on the lower parts where it says other aspects of Yamato, and that's something that people really don't understand for some reason. I don't know why, but that's a very definitive part of Yamato obviously being depicted as a female. I mean that's more of a statement rather than a showing. But at this point, I'm kind of going over a lot of aspects of the series, and specifically of Yamato being a female. There's so many points at this point that I've shown that prove that what Yamato is a female. And in fact, I've proven it, I think, a lot now. And I mean, there's so many things that I've already pointed out at this point that prove it. A lot of people are like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be, blah blah blah. Oda is the author. He's the one who states if someone's one thing, that should be it. That there's no other way of saying not. I mean, you're not going to just go against the author and what they think of their own character. That's kind of like being a lunatic, I guess, is what you'd say. And there's nothing. And people, all those people who are like, again on the other side of it, where they're like, oh, Yamato's a male, blah blah blah. They call everybody who tries to point out these facts as homophobic and everything. I'm like, no, I don't think that's personally. I don't think that's the right take, because first of all, most most of the One Piece community, most of the anime community is very fine with Kiku herself, who is a trans character. I don't mind Kiku at all. I think Kiku is a fantastic character and fantastically written. Honestly, one of the best characters in the Wano arc. Another character in all of One Piece, in my opinion, honestly, one of my favorite characters in the entire series is Bon Clay. I mean, how in the hell can you not like Bon Clay? Especially after what Bon Clay did. It was insane. How you can't like this character and still call people that terminology, homo or whatever, homophobe or whatever. But yeah, and Ivankov too. There's these characters are all great characters that are written and people love. And I just don't understand why they are disregarded and not the central points of representation that all these activists from these social media things are trying to argue against. It doesn't really make any sense to me, at least, because there's this notion that if you can't conform to one belief, you're against everybody and you're against everything. No, but no, that's not the case at all. It's very clear what Oda indicated as what characters are what in his story, and I think that's something that he's always been very meticulous about, because he's always defined characters the way he wants them to. And even if you don't pick it up at first, he does a brilliant way to show it throughout the series. And being himself, he knows what he's talking about. So with that said, I think I've pretty much discussed everything I needed to discuss. Number one, uh, Yamato is first and foremost not a trans character. I think at this point we've all grown tired of the arguments and everything. It's kind of like a really dumb battle in general, because you can, I guess people can be in their own head canon and consider a character to be this or that, whatever. But the facts of the series and the manga, Oda himself kind of you know lay the foundation of what this character is. And me as a fan of Yamato, and as a fan of really good written characters, it it just mind boggles me uh, how divided the community is in all this. It's very, yeah, it's very just weird how the whole community is just like going in a frenzy about all this stuff. I mean, even the character design of Yamato herself is like very apparent. I mean, yeah, at first you can't really tell. You assume Yamato is like a male, but there's no actual like indication about that, because that it just doesn't seem that apparent. And something that I guess most people don't really look into is the oidon aspect of these characters. I mean, this is basically taking place in like a feudal era depicted Japan. And I mean, there's another character in this series that I think very, very indicates well about the oidon look. it's specifically the hairpins is something that I just can't like look over. Like if Yamato didn't have those hairpins, I'd be like, okay, maybe there's Oda's trying to be less conspicuous on the portrayal of the character, so that means Yamato could go either or. But with those Oidon hairpins, it kind of like I don't know, it just made me like think, yeah, I guess he does consider her a girl. Otherwise, why would he include those hairpins on her specifically? And nobody else really has those type of Oidon hairpins. You see Black Maria have it, you see Hiyori have it, you even see Big Mom wear those type of hairpins. Um, and these are all female characters, and you don't see any of the male characters do that at all. If if they even do, I mean, I can't think of any at the top of my head, but yeah. And another aspect that I find very weird is that there are people who say, "Oh, Yamao means Yama bro," but I don't think that is an accurate representation because first and foremost, Yamao doesn't actually translate to Yama bro even from Japanese to English. And I taken I'm in N3 working on N2, and trust me, N2 level of Japanese is freaking hard. And N3 I thought was already hard, but N2, my God. Most people say to be like a very, very advanced speaking Japanese, you got to reach N2 at the very least. And N1 is just like, it, N1 is like you have to know even more than regular Japanese people know. You have to know all these like different aspects of the language and everything, different like cultural aspects of it too, not just the language itself, but historical uses of the language. You got to know the old type of language. It's just a whole bunch of layers to it that make it so difficult to understand. But yeah, I'm an N3 level Japanese. Um, uh, I guess student. I would say. I mean, I already took the test, so I've already certified myself as that. But yeah. Anyway, in Japanese and having read the Japanese text myself, I have not seen anything that says or translates Yama-O as Yama-bro. I mean, not even the English localization translates that to Yama-bro. So yeah, it's Yama-O. Otherwise, in another aspect of that is Kiku. Kiku is called Okiku in the um in the manga and in the Japanese text itself. So if you were to, if you were to say, "Oh, Yama-O means Yama-bro," um, that'd be kind of weird because then Kiku's name would be Bro Kiku because adding the O for some reason it just doesn't make any sense. It's just a nickname that Luffy gave to Yamato, like he gives to a lot of other people. He literally gives nicknames to so many people, and usually you just brush it over. It doesn't really mean anything aside from that specific nickname. But yeah, that's everything according to the character. That's what I think of Yamato as a character and gender, and kind of like clearing all this misconception and everything with the character. I mean, look, if you believe Yamato is a male, fine. I don't really care, but the Oda himself, most of the evidence from the manga and Oda himself kind of, contradict that. But I think we should just be happy that we have a lot of good characters and, we have LGBTQ characters too. So that's awesome. I don't know why people are, kind of missing out on those characters. Those characters are pretty cool. But yeah, that's all I got to say for this one. Peace.